Hey, everybody. Hey, girls. Hey. Hey, boys. Hey. It's Mama Beauties here, and I am coming at you from North Carolina, and we are about to go over Dr. Phil's podcast. We are about to go over Dr. Phil's podcast. Let me see if I can get some people to hop on. I know that a lot of people are at work, but I need to use my internet when it is good because late at night, around midnight, it gets really bad. And we are going to, during this live, I'm going to go over the Dr. Phil, The Devil Beside Me Part 4 podcast that I just listened to and took notes on. And I am going to answer some comments from my Nichol lives yesterday. Hello, Redmilia in Australia. Hey, that's awesome. Hey, Kimberly. So it was really heart-wrenching today listening to that podcast. You know how Dr. Phil can just really get you. And he was talking about what Bella had saw. And then I found out that I had another similarity to this case because he put a clip on there of Sandy talking about her granddaughters. And she said that whenever Chris was murdering them, that she felt like that they were screaming for their mommy or they were screaming for their nana. And when she said nana, my heart dropped because I have a almost 18-month-old granddaughter and my name is Donna. And so instead of being called granny or grandma, I wanted my granddaughter to call me nana. And so it was like, whoo, when I heard that that's what Bella and Cece called Sandy was Nana, it just disheartening. It's just all so sad. So I'm going to try to hold it together and tell you guys that the podcast started out with the fact that they had to go over there a few months after the murders and empty out Shanann's home, and that they put everything into storage because it would never be used again. So that all that beautiful furniture and everything that we all saw in those confessions or in those body cams would never be used again. The beds, the couch we all saw, everything that she did her videos on Facebook about Thrive, you saw in the background was just gone. And they had to put everything in storage. And they said that once Chris pled guilty, that they had came to terms with the fact, the Ruseks, that they would never get answers. But he pled guilty and they had put it to rest, and they just knew that Chris would never tell the truth, especially since he had lied in the beginning and said that Shanann had did it. And so they were okay with not knowing any more details. But when they found that second interview where the CBI and FBI went out and interviewed Chris, and he told them that he wanted to clear Shanann's name. When they found out some of the details in that, they wished that they had not known, that they didn't want to know the truth, that they realized at that point that they would have been a lot better off not knowing the truth. Is it buffering for anybody else? You guys, are you having buffering problems? Gage, get off the internet. I told you it was going to lag. You can get back on when I get off. Let me know if it's still buffering. Hello, everybody. I did tell my son that we both can't, the internet cannot sustain both of us, that he needed to be off of it. So hopefully I'm not buffering anymore. I'm so sorry. What's up, Redmilia Rickson? Am I still buffering? So basically, they are saying they wish that they would have never found out this second confession. So I can imagine how they feel about the book. And he has a whole nother episode coming up. So he only talked about all the way up into that second confession. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Red Amelia. Okay, you guys are awesome. Okay, so that's all he talked about. He didn't talk about anything from the book. It was all just that confession out there where he had pretty much cleared Nichol and the cops went to Wisconsin to talk to him. So he did talk about how the only time during sentencing that Chris cried was when he was being read his charges and his life sentences. He says that he wept during that, but no other time did he show any kind of emotion. They also said that I didn't know this, but I'm sure a lot of you guys did. This is why I love my channel and my subscribers. But Chris had to wear a bulletproof vest during the trial, sentencing, plea deal, all of that. When he was in court, he was such a hated man by the world, not just his little area, but by the world, that he had to wear a bulletproof vest. And he also said that even Dr. Phil says that usually he goes to work and he can compartmentalize his work and come home and not bring it home with him. But he said this was one of those cases that he could not compartmentalize and that it did go home with him. And this is just like everybody else in the world. It is not abnormal that we want answers to this case because people want to do things better. Dr. Phil went into that 80% of kids that go to school with guns tell somebody this. And the way that they found that out are studying these cases. And so by us studying this Watts case, we're hoping that maybe that this process can be studied and changed, and maybe there will be a way to stop it next time. And so it's just about educating yourself and hopefully making the necessary changes for our children's future. So yes, he cried for himself. So then he goes into the family never thought that he would confess again after sentencing. Like I told you, they had wrapped it up. They thought it was all over. Imagine how they are how Chris re-victimizes the Rusaks every time he comes out with a new confession. He re-victimized them when he did this in Wisconsin, and he tried to play the hero and pretend like he was clearing her name, but he just re-victimized them all over again. And then he re-victimized them with the book. The judge did say that this case was one of the most vicious and the most inhumane cases that he had ever presided over, and that he had presided over thousands and thousands of cases before. So that in itself tells you that it was just heinous. So also, Dr. Phil points out that Sandy had said during this that Chris made the choice to take the lives of her beautiful, precious loved ones, her daughter and her granddaughters, and that she didn't want to be in the position of being the person that would take Chris's life. That he had made the choice to do that to hit her family, that she didn't want to make the choice to do that to him. So she didn't like that position at all. And then Dr. Phil goes into about how Chris being in prison, that there are a lot of people in there that have nothing to lose, that they're in there for life. They're never going to see their family. They're never going to, and that they will take this opportunity to become a hero. And that if anyone killed Chris in prison, that people would look at that person as if they did a, like, did a justice for society. And so Chris has to watch his back because there's plenty of people that have nothing to lose. They've thrown their entire life away and they are behind bars forever. And so if they could get that one moment of fame by killing Chris, they will definitely take that opportunity. And that's why he's always on protective custody, on solitary confinement. Whenever the media gets a frenzy, then he always has to go on some kind of protective. And he is also now, with all the handicapped guys, most of them being in wheelchairs, right next to the infirmary. So they have him all tucked away, nice and protected as much as you can be in prison. Then he also says that most family annihilators kill themselves, that Chris did not do this, that Chris did not go as far as killing himself. He was too much of a coward. Chris is terrified of dying. That's why he took the plea deal, is because he does not want to die. He never intended on killing himself. He is terrified of dying. And so that is the only reason why he took the life consecutive sentences, is because he did not want to die. And he also says that he agrees with me that we have yet to see Chris have any remorse. I have yet, everything that Chris has done so far has been fake. I have not seen a legit transformation. I have not seen a legit coming to Christ. I just don't believe in anything that he says. I hope so too. I definitely hope he keeps throwing that somehow these questions get answered. And Dr. Phil admits that Chris loves the attention right now in the spotlight. And the whole reason why he even talked to investigators when they went out there was because he wanted that moment of attention and the focus to be on him. And so he took that 5 hours to conversate with them because he was eating it up. They were just joking and laughing in that interview. And Chris looked at it as a social party. Dr. Phil said again that Chris crushed the bones of his daughters and shoved them into the oil tank. So I find it hard to believe that he would say that twice on 2 different podcasts if it wasn't true. And so this is what makes me think Chris sealed the girls' records for his parents not to be able to see, is because he did do that. That would make sense. And that would make sense on why he would tell people in the book. He doesn't know why his lawyers made him seal the girls' medical records at the end of sentencing. He said it was part of his plea deal, but he probably didn't want any more people to find out that he had to do that to his precious babies to get probably Bella in the tank. And Dr. Phil says that he is out of touch from reality. And I definitely agree with that. Thank you, Britta. Thank you so much. Investigators did tell Chris when they first got there that they had no more charges on him. That, they tricked him by saying not one person saw this coming, Chris. So you can hear in that interview, they do butter him up a little bit. They're trying to pump him up and make him think that this was a special case and that they've never seen anybody like Chris. And so they were smart. They knew to pump his ego and to feed into this, and he would start talking, and he sure did. He started talking. So they made him think that he was a mastermind because that no one had ever not shown any signs before of a family annihilator beforehand. And that Dr. Phil points out that society has a need for life to make sense. And again, that's when he pointed out that's why we study these things, is to try to make sense of them. He points out that Chris is able to have sex with Shanann, according to Chris, this is what he says in that interview, hours before he murders her. So imagine what kind of person, if this is true, if Chris is not lying, he could be lying, but if he is not lying, imagine what kind of person has sex with someone and is able to perform and then fall back asleep and then wake up and murder that person that they just made love to hours before or had sex with, however you want to look at it. It's like this guy was, wow, he was beyond delusional. I mean, even Dr. Phil calls him a sociopath, in the end, a psychopath, pretty much. Both, because there is a difference. So he says that Chris even admits that when they were intimate, that it felt strange and he thought it was a test from Shanann. So he said in that actual interview that something was in his head irking him. And Dr. Phil does say that Chris fell for the agents pretending to like him, and that put yourself in Shanann's shoes. This man had just had sex with her. Then he tells her that he doesn't love her. Then he sits on top of her unborn baby. And she also knows there's someone else because of the charge the night before. Imagine what was going through her mind when this man is doing this to her. And it's unimaginable. Unimaginable. Dr. Phil says that he speculates she may have been a victim of domestic violence and maybe just afraid to report it. Remember, even Chris says that she liked to keep up with the Joneses. She liked to pretend like everything was okay and act like there was they had more than they had. So if she was a victim of domestic violence, she definitely probably wouldn't have told anyone. And this is only speculation, but I just wanted to tell you what he said in the podcast. And he said that an irresistible impulse is different from an impulse not resisted. They are two different things. So he doesn't feel like Chris had an irresistible impulse that morning. He feels like Chris had an impulse that he did not resist. So he told the FBI agents when they came that he told the crew not to come to the site. And so by telling, we all saw the text messages where he told the crew not to come to the site. So there's no way hi Jay Lewis, there's no way that this was a snap or a rage when he had told the guys not to come to the site earlier, days before. So he also says that Chris admits Shanann never closed her eyes while he was killing her. That he thinks that maybe she prayed. And then Dr. Phil talks about the fight or flight system, and that once you either fight or once you either flight, that there is a release of tension. So you can't like snap for an hour. There was no way that he snapped at the house and then continued a physical rage all the way to the oil tanks, because that it's not physically possible. Dr. Phil says to go outside and scream and put yourself in a physical rage where you're screaming and yelling and frantic and see how long you can do it for. He said that it is virtually impossible for anyone to be in a rage for that long. So, and even Chris admits, you guys, that he had 3 chances to get out. He said the first chance was when his car swayed off the road. The second chance was when he killed the girls the first time and they woke up. And then I'm drawing a blank on what the third chance was. But in the book, he did say that he had 3 chances to not do it. Or when him and Nichol fought, I think was the other chance. He had 3 chances to back out. And then he admits that Bella woke up during the commotion in this confession. And so that right there is the only thing that ever made me say, what if the girls weren't supposed to die? And since they woke up while he was killing Shanann, he had to kill them. But he is just a sicko too, and could have just planned to kill everyone so he could have a clean slate, and didn't want to wake up with anyone when he was with NK. He wanted to be by himself. So both are possible, but we don't know because Chris has told 3 truths at this point. He says that Dr. Phil said that people that are in shock move slow in a zombie-like state, and Chris did not do that. He talks about how he just carried Shanann down the stairs, and that how she was too heavy for him to carry, and that he dropped her down the stairs a few times, and that the girls were up running around and seeing him do all this. And Dr. Phil does point out this horrible thought that is just hard to think about how thin a sheet is. And I never really thought about that until he said that. He did wrap up these babies' mother and put her at the feet of his two children and her children, and imagine what they saw, because a sheet is not that thick. It's not like it was a comforter or a rug. It was a paper thin sheet. That's why they asked if mommy was okay. And then after they ask if mommy's okay, he drags her down the stairs. Of course they had to know that there wasn't. Oh, and then he says that he put her in the truck, and then Cece gets up, and now he has both girls running around. And I just want to emphasize here, take a moment to say that you can teach a 4-year-old to call 911 in the state of emergency. So I just wish at this point Bella either saw this and just started running down the street screaming for help, or had she called 911 and just left the phone off the hook. I know the other side of teaching a 4-year-old calling 911, they'll probably do it not knowing any better and call them over and over, and it defeats the purpose. But I'm just grasping at straws here of anything that would have been able to be done ahead of time to save the precious girls' lives. And I mean, it's just hard. It's really, really hard to even but I'm not going to get emotional, I promise. So he also says that the girls trusted Chris when he said that she was going to be okay and that she just wasn't feeling good. And so that they believed their dad. They had loved their dad. And so why wouldn't they believe him? He hadn't given them any reason to not believe him at that point. So I understand. I know. They were too young. I get it. I know. I have 5 kids. I mean, and my youngest is 8 and my oldest is 21. So, and I have an empty nest now, and I only have one left. So, here that I'm raising. So, you're absolutely right. That Chris packed a lunch that day. Like, he packed a lunch, and he keeps saying different stories of when he packed the lunch, but to just go on to work like nothing ever happened is insane. That he was thinking about eating. How can you eat after that? How can you even think about eating after that? Lisa, absolutely. Especially when I found out that Sandy had the girls call her Nana, because that's what my granddaughter calls me, because my real name is Donna, and so she calls me Nana. So let's get back to Dr. Phil said that he could have put the girls in the front seat. Why did he have to put them in the back seat with their feet dangling down on top of their mother? But we all know here, right, that he couldn't do that, because had a police officer passed him, he would have been caught. A police officer would have pulled anyone over seeing a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old in the front seat of a car without car seats. They didn't have car seats. So there's no way he was going to put them up front with him. So I did disagree with him on that. He didn't want the dead body to be exposed. Had he put them up front, had he made that mistake, that would have been awesome, because I know for a fact he wouldn't have been able to drive an hour with 2 toddlers out of car seats in the front seat in Colorado. So, yes, a total psychopath. Total psychopath. So Dr. Phil goes into about how Chris had an hour to calm down, and it being physically impossible to be enraged that long. And Chris had a change of clothes in the truck and disposed of the Yankee blanket and the clothes that he was wearing during the murder at a construction dumpster on his way back to the house. Remember, they saw through his GPS that he stopped at a dumpster, and we all wanted to know what he got rid of in that dumpster. It was the clothes he was wearing when he murdered his wife and babies, and the Yankee blanket that he smothered them with. When they showed the neighbor's video of him backing his truck up in the garage, why couldn't we see his kids getting into the truck? Because they got in on the driver's side, and there were some shadows of them going up to them, getting into the truck. But when he backed up, he put the girls in on the driver's side instead of on the passenger side, because he was well aware of that camera being there, because the neighbor had already told him he could park his truck there because Chris supposedly had tools stolen before. And so he told him that he could park his truck there, that his video camera would catch it. So I believe that Chris was well aware of that camera. True. And then he we know that he stopped and got rid of the Yankees blanket that he smothered his babies with on the way back to meet the cops for the first time with Nicole Atkinson at his house. He says that this never came out of the blue, and it wasn't a snap, that it was premeditated, it wasn't blind rage, that he did not want to blow himself up because he did not want to injure anyone in the area around him. So he points out how Chris takes a moral high ground during his confessions. So the first confession, he took a moral high ground by saying that he killed Shanann after she killed the girls. He took a moral high ground by saying that he's this victory guy that killed Shanann because she was killing the babies, and he deserves a pat on the back because he's a hero and she was a villain. Okay, and then in the other confession, he wants the agents to know that he's a hero for not using the gas can because he didn't want to hurt the people around them. He was okay with murdering his entire family, but he didn't use the gas can and kill himself because he didn't want to hurt the people around him. That is hogwash. He just did not want to die. Yes. I don't know how someone is able to do this. It is just awful. And then he said that after work, he started, once he got in the house, he started staging things. He shoved Shanann's phone down in the couch and made sure the Apple Watch was sitting there. And that's probably what he did when he ran into the house and he didn't open the front door. I guarantee you, he put that ring next to the nightstand. He shoved the phone down in the crack and the Apple Watch too. So that is where that minute lapse is before he opens the front door to NK and officers. No guts to commit suicide. Yep. So then he says, Chris even admits that NK knew he was married and even saw Shanann on his home screen of his phone when he was showing her pictures of his girls. So Chris admits in his second confession that NK knew all about him being married and that he knew she Googled marrying, the man I'm having an affair with, leave his wife. He said he knew about all of that, and that the only thing she didn't know about was the baby, is what he's trying to say. But but he did also admit in that same interview that she could know from social media. The whole case makes no sense. How did he get Shanann in the back of that truck without traces of decomp? Also, Cece has a ball of energy. How'd he keep her still in the truck for over an hour? They were probably terrified, and they did admit that they clung to each other. They had just seen him drag their mother down the stairs, her feet hitting every stair. I mean, that's even what Dr. Phil says in his podcast that happened. And so they were terrified. And they didn't check his truck until days later because she was only missing. He had plenty of time to get everything out of the truck. The Yankee blanket is what Dr. Phil is saying that Chris smothered the girls with. That is the only thing I know about the Yankee blanket. I believe so too, Julie, and it surprised him when they woke up. Absolutely. And about the Yankees blanket, you guys, I'm just telling you what Dr. Phil said. He said that he smothered the girls with it and he got rid of it in a dumpster when he got rid of his clothes. So, but I believe you totally that it's in a video. Unless Shanann bought the same pair of flip flops more than once, she could have bought the same Yankees blanket more than once. So they each could have got one. So it could be a different Yankee blanket. We don't know. That's the thing. There's so many different angles to this case. And that's what I'm here for, is to let you guys know that it can go this way, this way, this way, or this way until these ways are disproved or the right way is proven. We have no idea. Okay. And then he says that Chris said that she lied to save face, that NK pursued him, and that she lied about not knowing Shanann was pregnant because she wanted to not look bad and didn't want the world to look down upon her. These are just parts of thoughts, too many angles to this case. This case is sickening. I agree. Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate your thoughts because you guys help me see other things too that I've probably closed my mind to or that I didn't think that way. So I love having these lives and hearing you guys' thoughts and ideas. Yes, Paula, I agree. Totally. 1000%. It is sickening. Chris does say that NK hated being second and she hated when he had to go home to his family. And she knew she was the other woman. Chris says he knew about her searches and the stuff she was looking up. And she could have found out that Shanann was pregnant just by checking their social medias. And Dr. Phil says that his jailhouse religion and his newfound faith was a very fast transformation, that he's been around a lot of guys from prison and it usually takes a while, but Chris was all about it a few months after getting there. So he's skeptical of that. And he says that Chris is manipulating the world with this and is a psychopath, and his lack of capacity to feel guilt or remorse makes him that way. And that he just didn't care and it didn't matter to him that morning. Yes, I agree, Helen. Yes, until I get some of my questions answered about NK, and I don't even have to have all of them answered. I just want to know when she started working at Anadarko. I just want to know why she was in Frederick that morning at 6:30. I just want to know why she was Googling the man I was having an affair with if she had no idea that they were still together. And what was on that 111-minute phone call? Why was Daniel at your house on Friday and Jim at your house on Monday and you went out with Chris on Saturday in between? Why did you give two men keys to your house? Why were you Googling double you know what on your searches as well when two different men had keys to your house? Are some of the rumors I've heard true? Was Jim really at the sand dunes? Was there really a red car that is being hidden by Chris's truck? There's just so much rumor and so much discovery that the two gets intertwined, that it's hard to remember what I read from Discovery and what I read on YouTube in the comments somewhere. So I agree totally. Yes, or on up to just answering to some of this. If you're not guilty, NK, then you would come forward. You would at least sum up some of these things. Why were you calling a rehab for 22 minutes? And you spoke to Chris before you called that rehab and after you called that rehab. Chris was in North Carolina. Oxys were floating around. How in the world, why would you call a rehab? And why did you not want Jim to talk to the police so bad? Why did you want to convince the police that Jim had no idea about Chris, even though it had nationwide coverage? Everyone knew about Chris. There were millions of people that knew about Chris at this point, but she wanted the agent to really believe that he hadn't seen anything about Chris. So, and that no, 8 times we don't need to talk to Jim. So I don't get it. And he was only wanting to talk to Jim to verify that she came home at 3:45 and that she was in her house at 3:45 after work the day of the murders. Not to ask Jim anything about Chris, but to just verify where she was. And she said she would sign over her phone records before she did that. She'd rather have them have the phone records of hers and Chris's conversations, but definitely not talk to Jim. So something's up there. Plus, she told investigators that she called Chris right back after he said that the cops were at his house and that NK had made him call, or that she had called them. And she talks to Jim for an hour and 15 minutes before she calls Chris back. So she thought Jim was more important than Chris having cops at his house for an hour. But then she tells detectives that she called Chris right back. So, because she didn't want to alert detectives that whatever was going on with Jim there was way more important for an hour than the love of your life having police at his house and a missing family. Also, Sherilyn Cadle says that the dark things that NK was doing at her house is in the missing chapter, that her editor made her take that chapter out. I guess they thought the book wouldn't sell with that kind of stuff in it. So they made her take out the chapter of NK from the book before it went into print. True. His father is his hero. He did tell him that, even though Bella sang that song to him, he told his father in a letter that he was his hero. Chris Watts had a fear at his home after murders. Devil wanted his soul. Yes, he did say that. And I do believe in all that. Yes, very possible, Helen. Very, very possible. Why does NK call the shots about who they interrogate? I would have been more suspicious of Jim and call him in immediately. Yeah, and I don't like the way this agent interviewed Nichol. He basically told NK, "It's okay. You're not being charged here. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to." I mean, he didn't have to say those things. He didn't have to lie and tell her that she did have to tell him, but he could have refrained from saying that she didn't have to tell him. Yeah, the author's already been discussing on another channel. So I don't know if she'll go on 80's channel because they really attacked her in the comments. And she said 3 days ago on another YouTuber's channel that this YouTuber is where she gets people be nice to her, and that YouTuber subscribers treat her with respect, and that she really likes her subscribers. So I think that she's going to do it on that channel. And if you guys want to listen to an interview of the author, then it is on Critical K's channel. She has entrusted the author has entrusted Critical K with this information, and supposedly it was going to be read in her Patreon group, but she cannot release this chapter until her Dr. Oz episode. So maybe it's on that. Maybe it's on there and she can't talk about it until after that. Yeah, they were coddling her, Kathy. I totally agree. I do too, Kimberly. I do too. Definitely do, because there's just too many unanswered questions. And when people are like, oh, they haven't charged her, leave her alone. I did. I left her alone for months after the murder. But then once things started popping up, I didn't anymore. And these were things I got out of discovery. I'm not talking about things that I learned from groups or from YouTube. I'm talking about things I got from discovery. She literally was Googling wedding dresses, you guys. I heard that too, Kathleen. Yes, I know, Kathleen. It's tragic. It affected a lot of people, and now people are looking sideways at their daughters' fiancés, at their sons' fiancés, and so you always are on alert now. You don't know if that sweet, precious girl is beating your son, or if that sweet young man is beating your daughter. I mean, it's just horrible. Cadel said on Kay's channel when I watched it the other night that Kay did not leak her book, that it was not Kay that did it. She said that she knows who did it and it wasn't Kay, and that she trusts Kay, and that she's going to be on her channel after the Dr. Oz contract is up. What was your observation, Muffy? Yes, that is true. I know you're not a troll, Muffy. That is true. There are people saying that Ronnie was a cocaine addict. I don't know where that came from. I don't know where it originated from, so I never said it because I don't know where it came from. But yes, I have heard that. Absolutely. And that he used to be an addict of cocaine. And thank you so much for each and every one of you guys. I am so honored that you would pick me to watch. I really am. And I love having people to discuss this with. I wish that we could learn something from this so it does not happen again to someone else. Yes, and that's exactly what we're doing. That's why these channels are up. It's not to harass the families. I haven't reached out to the family at all, and I won't. And I've seen them in comments of other people's channels, and I'm not going to reach out to them. This is only for us to be able to see signs or maybe stop it from happening to someone in our family. That's it. As soon as we hear that so and so has got a $62 charge and he was supposed to be alone, we're going to go pick up our daughters or pick up our sons and bring them home. When at the first sign of cheating or anything like that. Helen Jones, you thought, yeah, I thought she leaked Cato's book too. I saw that on another channel, her text messages where she sent it to all her mods ahead of time. But Cato does not believe that, Helen. Cato said on that other channel, Shanann saw a razor blade on a table her girls could have picked up. She protected her family. Yes, I agree. Do I feel the whole marriage was a lie, or did this just develop at the end? Chris told NK that it was horrible for 6 years, that they only had 2 good years. Absolutely. Yep, he did say that for 6 years that he wasn't happy, and NK was like, "Well, why'd you stay for so long?" And Chris told NK evidently, because this was in NK's interview, that they both stayed for the kids. Thank you, still here. I appreciate that. Chris was still wanting love from Shanann. Yeah, I mean, obviously, because he's saying that they were intimate right 2 hours before he murdered her. So, and he was able to perform. I mean, if he, I don't know. I mean, you would think with as much animosity as he had towards her, he wouldn't have been able to do that. Yeah, I think Chris either got the oxy from Jim, NK, Ronnie, Jamie, or Cindy. Those are the only people that they would protect. And he's not protecting Jim. NK protected Jim. So they're the only people that kind of got protection, you know? So I believe that the oxy came from one of those people. Otherwise, why would he not just say it? I do not believe the oxy came from the bin in the basement at all. That is hogwash. And something's up with Ronnie too, you guys. When the way he acted at when he was told that he killed Shanann and that the girls were dead, he said, "Well, what did you haul the bodies off or something?" He said it so calm and so nonchalant that and I need y'all to know that the Denver airport is an hour away from Frederick. It's an hour away from Frederick. So when he picked up his dad from the Denver International Airport, he had an hour from the airport to the Frederick Police Department where he went in and gave that interview. So they had plenty of time to talk. And so I don't believe that it was the first time. Even when he told him he was having an affair, he didn't look shocked. I think he told them about NK on his last day in North Carolina before he left, when he told him he was separating from Shanann. I agree. Yes, Ronnie Watts knew ahead of time what was going on. He coached Chris Watts through the whole confession. I agree. I think they talked about him deny all the way there and what he was going to do. And Ronnie sat out in the lobby. And then when Chris knew he couldn't deny anymore, he needed to tell his dad first. I messed up. I couldn't do what you told me to do. So now what do I do, Dad? They've caught me. So that's why he didn't act so surprised. Exactly. Thank you very much, still here. I agree. Yes. No one can convince me of that either. Yes, Kathleen, it would have happened. And he would have gotten rid of NK. Once if he ever got away with that, he would have gotten rid of NK and their new baby. Like he would have met somebody else. Like he was a psychopath. There is no way that he wasn't going to do this. I think it would have happened again, and it may have happened before. I mean, that's how open my mind is. If he could do those things, how do we know that the carpets weren't shampooed because he had done something else messed up? Why were the carpets shampooed and the furniture out the way when Shanann and the girls weren't even home? Chris seemed to need direction and approval for everything. Dad should have said, "Don't talk, call lawyer, don't." Yeah, and why was a lawyer not present for NK or Chris? Neither one of them asked for a lawyer. They both thought that they were like masterminds and could do this. I love how the detectives came back into the room when his father's mentioned getting a lawyer. Yeah, because they were watching behind the screens for sure. Yes. That is where he got the idea from. He admitted that he would have never said that about Shanann had they not brought it up. Yeah, I don't believe that, Jay Ludis. I believe that it was Oxycontin because oxycodone does not come in 80 milligrams. Everyone that keeps saying that it was oxycodone only comes in fives, tens, 15s, 20s, 30s. I think at 30 is the highest oxycodone you can get. And then the Oxycontin comes in 20s, 40s, 80s. So, and I am an ex, like that was my drug of choice was pain pills. I agree, A. Andrews. And oxytocin is the hormone. Pitocin is the hormone that you get to go into labor. Oxytocin is the hormone that shows up in pregnancy to show how far along you are. That is like the HCG that shows up in your pregnancy. But Pitocin is what they give to induce labor because I had to be induced with all 5 of my children with Pitocin. Yeah, I think it was already planned to blame Shanann too because he brought out that phone and was ready to show. I thought he was blocked from Shanann's Facebook. But all of a sudden he was able to pull up that picture of what she had on her Facebook. Did he screenshot it? Did he have it screenshot and saved in his phone? Because he could not access Shanann's Facebook in that interrogation room because he was blocked from Nutgate. So, right. And plenty of women took 80 milligram Oxycontins during pregnancy and didn't have any problems. I don't know where he got the delusional idea that an 80 milligram Oxycontin would make you not would make you miscarry. That's not true. With my first delivery, it took hours. It took like 12 hours. But then with Pitocin after that, and With Pitocin, I always went from 5 centimeters to 10. Like it would be slow process, but then at the end of the Pitocin, it was quick. It was like always, they would come in and think I was going to be a 6, and I was already at a 10 with every child. Julie Johnson about the Pitocin. Yeah, he thought Oxy would cause a miscarriage. And the whole family sucks at acting and lying. You can easily see through it all when you watch. I hate the law enforcement didn't catch more in the moment. Me too. Chris Watts told stories to the author to amuse himself. I agree, Julie. It maybe could have if your body was not tolerant of it. Many people have died thinking they could take that much to start with, but their body couldn't handle it. That's true, A. Andrews. Many people have died, and with alcohol. If you had any kind of alcohol in your system, you will die quick on Oxycontin. So, or if she had anything else in her system, and we know she was taking nausea medicine. So who knows? It would have caused a miscarriage. You're right. If it was their first time, but he says that he gave it to her twice and then he took it back. So that's always weird too. I always wondered why he did that. I agree. The detectives played Chris like a fiddle. I wish they had time with NK. I wish those detectives would have interviewed NK. Hello from the UK. I really do wish those detectives that interviewed Chris would have interviewed NK instead of the Kevin guy. But there wasn't a lot on Dr. Phil's episode today. It was all stuff we already knew. Yeah, that's a good point, sad girl. Yep, what was he going to do if she lost the baby? What was he going to do? Would the girls have survived if she would have lost the baby? Or was he going to say that she had postpartum and killed the girls? We know that he had a month to obsess over it. He was obsessing for a solid month over killing his family. Yep, she did tell him to erase all his messages, and she told him to move his truck. Why did she tell him to move his truck if she didn't know there was a dead body in it at one point? Why did she tell him to move the truck? Please give me a plausible explanation, and I will shut up about that. I agree, Muffy. I definitely agree that he gave her oxycodone or Oxycontin, whichever it is, the morning of the murders, so she could not fight back. I absolutely 1000% agree with you, Muffy. Yeah. Her dad stopped intense interrogation. Still don't know how he pulled that off. Me either. I don't either. I'm telling you. I want some answers to my questions. And hopefully Dr. Oz will give me some on Tuesday because I was expecting some today in this Dr. Dr. Phil podcast, and I got nothing. Nothing that I didn't already know. So what are you guys' thoughts on Jim? Tell me in the comments. Help me understand why she would be hiding Jim. Nerds. Sad girl. He Told her it was headache medicine. And she took it. But you know how Advil is coated? That's how Oxycontin is coated now. It has that coating on it to make it time released. Because I remember scratching it off when I was an addict to be able to snort it. Yep. Shanann got sick only when he got to NC. So he definitely drugged her out there and the morning he murdered her. Thank you, Julie. I do too, Kimberly. Maybe Red Milia. Put it in her Thrive Shake. I heard he also put it in her balance pills too. And they're capsules. And that she was having issues with being constipated. So she was taking balance because that's what Thrive Balance is. It's to help you be regular. But we all know that that happens when you're taking multiple pain pills. So I believe that too, Kathy. I believe that's why it took her an hour to get back to Chris, because she was counting out the oxys or the drugs or whatever from Jim, that Jim was bringing her the drugs. I believe so. Yep, that true. That could be absolutely true, Jay Lewis. Yes, still here. I agree. I mean, if he can do some of the things that he did. I agree. They went to go visit Chris to get info on NK. I wonder what the dark things are too, Sandy girl. Mm-hmm. Agreed. Well, sorry guys, I'm starving. I probably need to go eat and look up the Frazee case. It could be anything because she did Google DP, you guys, which is double, you know what. And she Googled anal sex, so. Unless he did say that he tells that girl everything, that Anna girl. Well, she's like his human diary, or Janelle girl or somebody. And if they have a falling out, like if Chris starts talking to somebody else that writes him and they have a falling out, she might run and tell everybody. I think so too. That could be very true, A. Andrews. He wanted to kill Shanann and NC so his girls could stay with his family. That's a possibility. It didn't work, and they moved to Plan B. I do too, Ashley. Just from her searches. And two men had keys to her house. And we know what she was doing with the one man that had a key to her house. So why would she not be doing it with the other guy? Good conversation. Yep. Muffy, you hit the nail on the head. He was going to use it to murder her all along. And he wanted a trial run. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Sorry, I'm just reading back through comments, y'all. I just can't believe they haven't interviewed Jim. They haven't interviewed. Hold on. Oh, thank you. Still here. Yeah, I think Anna is using Chris Watts to write a book. I thought her autopsy showed alcohol in her system, but somebody told me that was from the crude oil. I could have swore I read that the toxicology was above a 0.08, which is illegal drinking limit or whatever to drive. I personally believe NK helped him get the meds too. And yes, she did call a rehab. Not too far-fetched. Always thought Jim was the dealer, or she was. See, I'm not the only one that thinks Jim's the dealer. And that's why she wanted to protect him so bad. I've always thought that the reason why she didn't, I mean, if you're seeing somebody and they say the cops are at my house and my family aren't home when I get home from work, I'm not going to wait an hour and 15 minutes to call them back. And that's what Nichol did because Jim was there. She said I was balancing the fact that Chris needed me and that I had company, and I called Chris back around 4:00. Well, records show that she didn't call back until 5:00. So whatever she did there with Jim, whether it be have sex with him, divvy out pills, they both did some. Her friends came over and she was selling them. I mean, who knows? She never invited officers to her house either. And so I don't know. I honestly have always thought that Jim was the dealer. I will. Me and my son are going to go eat here in a little bit. Thank you, Helen. You're sweet. Yeah, and to tell him to sell the wedding ring is just, how in the world do you think someone's coming back and then you tell him to sell the wedding ring? Like, she just wanted him to sell it to buy her one. Use every day of your life as an atonement. Yep. And he has, with more lies. I agree. I don't believe one bit that his grandparents came to him in his cell, or that the children, he can feel them when he's reading to them. I don't believe any of that hogwash he said. Maybe. I mean, why do people hate you for that, Andrews? It's just your opinion. You're allowed to have it. It is cold. You're right, Nikki. Maybe NK thought protecting Jim, her drug dealer, was a way of saving her ass from her being knocked off. Yeah, that's true. Maybe she had to wait to come down. No, you don't come down off of Oxycontin or oxycodone of that magnitude. You stay pretty high for 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours. I mean, and I'm going to watch her interview where I have a video soon, and I'll be able to tell from her movements if she is on pain pills, because you scratch a lot when you're on pain pills. Even if it's subtle scratches, you're like gonna scratch here and then next scratch here, and then you're gonna scratch here and then you're gonna scratch here. So, I mean, you're constantly scratching. Yep, why won't she? You're right. Why won't she come stand up for herself if she didn't do anything? There are too many coincidences. No, I don't think they drug tested him. And it wouldn't have mattered because it'd been days when he got arrested since the murders. So even if he took drugs, all he had to do is wait 3 days and pain pills are out of your system. So I think he drugged the girls too. I sure as heck wouldn't be disappearing if I was innocent. There's no way I'd be disappearing and no one would see me. If I was innocent, I would stand up for myself. So, why does it say that I've only been live for 12 minutes? I don't think my other live posted yesterday. I think if I go over an hour, it starts over or something. It does it in two. I don't know. Exactly. It does take a week if you've been doing them longer, but if you've only done it once or twice, it's only 3 days to get out of your system. 3 to 5 days at most. I know, because I stopped using them before just to pass drug tests when I was an addict for 4 years. And I loved me some Percocet. Pure Percocet, though. Oh, wow. That's nice to know. He is a coward. Well, I love all you guys' support and all your questions, and we will come back and talk about this. I'm going to go feed my son and take care of some things. I'm going to do my research on the Frazie's case, and I will be back to talk to you guys. Thank you all for your input. Every bit of it matters. Even if we don't agree, you could probably sway me. You could probably change my mind, because my mind is very open when it comes to this case. Except if you start telling me that Shanann was a child abuser or cheating, or the baby wasn't hers, or she didn't love her kids, or any of that hogwash, then I'm not going to listen to you. But you are free to give your opinion and say how you feel. I'm just not going to elaborate on it. So thank you all for your love and support. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you soon. Bye.